everybody, and welcome to the Gradcracker webinars. And today we are joined by Aston Martin Formula One. So before we meet everybody, I'd like to introduce me and Jess. So you might know us already, but my name is Carla, a director at Gradcracker. I've been with the business for 14 years and have looked after Aston Martin Formula One for nearly 3 years. And they advertise their placements on their hub on Gradcracker. Jess?
Yeah, I was about to say the same. If they don't know me, they're going to get to know me in the next few months because you'll be seeing a lot of me. So yes, I'm marketing director and I am here to make sure all students that are interested in the world of STEM are aware of Gradcracker and the amazing employees that advertise with us.
Yeah, everybody will definitely know Jess. So during the webinar, our aim is to find out a little bit more about Aston Martin Formula One. We will talk about who they are, what they do, and also what opportunities you, our STEM students, can apply for. We will then speak to the students about what life is like for them, and in today's webinar, we will cover in detail about the application process, the campus, relocation, and how the internship programmes are developing each year. At the end of the webinar, we hope you will go and apply to their roles which are currently live on Gradcracker. A massive thank you and a massive shout out to everybody who submitted their questions to this webinar. We've had loads and loads and loads and loads. So we're going to tackle probably about 10 or 15 as we progress through the webinar. So let's start and meet Natasha, who was with us last year. So you'll all know Natasha again this year. So Natasha, welcome again. Natasha is the head of recruitment and talent. We'll be giving you an insight about Aston Martin Formula One and the roles that they have open, and also some hints and tips about the application process. We're also joined by a fantastic panel. We've got placement students Ishmael, Edward and Robert, and graduate Kira. And Kira was also a placement student at Aston Martin Formula One as well. So Natasha, you've had a very, very busy few weeks with Adrian Newey joining as managing technical partner. So tell us a little bit more about what this will mean to you as a company and what your future plans are.
So hello everybody, lovely to be here again. I've actually been here for the last 2 years now, so you may be sick of seeing my face and hearing my voice, but
never.
Never. So yeah, it's been a very special couple of weeks. The worst kept secret in the world is finally out, so we can now breathe. But having somebody like Adrian Newey join our team is unbelievable. We've got quite a few special hires coming up over the next few months and years, so I'm expecting great things from our team from here on in. The last time I spoke to you, we just moved into our campus, into our first building. We've now got the 3 buildings almost up and running. We've moved into building 2, which is our amazing gym and studio, and our simulator will be in there. The driver simulator will be in there, which will be state of the art. And we've got amazing restaurant and studios for yoga and mindfulness. And we all have an app that you can go in and book your classes. So it just feels like everything's coming together. It's a really, really exciting time to join Aston Martin Formula One team.
Yeah, I bet the students are so excited about joining as well. So can you also give the students who are watching a brief introduction about the roles that you've currently got advertised on Gradcracker?
So there's 2 adverts running, and they've got a number of positions in them. So you'll have to look at them and click on them as you want to apply. So we've got, in no particular order, composite design, mechanical design, test and development. Some of you might know that as R&D, engine systems, aero design, aero R&D design, technical operations, garage equipment design. And then we've got Aston Martin Performance Technologies design, which is our non-F1 side of the business. Yeah. We've also got performance analysis, performance optimization, engine software, performance software, aerothermal, aerodynamics, experimental aero, race strategy, and a couple of IT roles as well this year. Yeah, so plenty to go for.
Yeah, lots and lots and lots to apply for. So just to put a bit of a date in your mind as well to the students who are watching. So the closing date for the opportunities is the 9th of October.
Yes, 9th of October. So I think we're going to talk about the process a little bit later on, but yeah, 9th of October is the closing date.
Yeah, absolutely. And Natasha's going to give you a little bit later on a bit of a brief about what you can expect during the application process, and any deadlines and key timelines and things like that. So, Natasha, I know we've worked together for quite a few years now, but I do feel that since you did the first webinar with us all of those years ago, the programs that you advertise on Gradcracker and the number of opportunities that you advertise has just grown from year to year to year. So tell us a little bit more about why your programs have grown and the different areas that students can go into.
I think you're exactly right there. So when I first started 3 years ago, we just had a handful of student placements. And each year it's grown. I think last year 18, I think this year 36 to 40 roles. So every year it's becoming more and more and more. And I think that's purely down to the amazing students that we've had, which we're going to hear from shortly. They add so much value from day one. They really do contribute. I think a lot of people think that you will get, you know, the not exciting jobs and, you know, or tasks, but I'm hoping that these lovely people will back up what I'm saying. You get thrown in at the deep end in the most amazing way. You know, you're working on the car. Like, I think that's quite unbelievable that gets to happen. So that's why, you know, we see such wonderful ideas coming in, engaging students, that more managers just wanted to be a part of it. That's basically it. So we're just increasing year on year.
Yeah, I think that is something that, you know, just thinking about the questions that we've been asked by the students who are watching is, do I get responsibilities from day one? Do I get to work on the car from day one? And it's like, absolutely, you know, the opportunities are there for you to take them.
Yes.
Thank you very much for that, Natasha. So what we're going to do is have an introduction from everybody else, and me and Natasha will get together towards the end of the webinar to talk about hints and tips and the application process in more detail. So Jess, I'm going to hand over to you.
Perfect. Well, Ishman, I'm going to come to you first, if that's okay. If you could just introduce yourself and tell us a bit about where you went to university, what you studied, and a bit about your role so far. Well, you had, the placement you did have.
Yeah, my name is Ishram. I go to the University of Birmingham and I do aerospace engineering there. So I chose Birmingham because it's quite local to me, and this whole time I've been located at home, so it's been easy just commuting in, only about a 20-minute bus ride, so that's been all right.
Perfect.
And at Aston Martin, I had the aerodynamic design role, which is mainly to do with wind tunnel operations and working with aerodynamicists and machine shops so that we can get parts of the wind tunnel on time.
Wow. So tell us a bit about the role and what was kind of your day-to-day tasks like. And as Natasha and Cal have just said, you know, as you have experienced, you really do get thrown in the deep end and you get that responsibility. So yeah, what was that like for you and what kind of things were you getting up to?
Yeah, you quickly find out that you're pretty much just like another member of the team. So you get stuck and you do the same work as everyone else. Like, it's not like you're just there sitting doing some random tasks, you're doing the same as everyone else. Yeah. With my role, typically it's like making the parts for our wind tunnel. So if aerodynamicists want to test some sort of design of the wind tunnel, it'd be on us to create those parts and then send it off to the wind tunnel. And we'd also get other little tasks like the R&D tests to improve some processes around here and there, which Rob can touch on as well, because I know he's worked on quite a few. Yeah. And yeah, you're pretty much just another member of the team working the same as everyone else.
I love that. I love that. And tell us a bit about kind of day to day. So would you go in on a morning knowing what's going to be on your desk and what was going to come through, or would you find that every day was a little bit different?
Yeah, and
you were Robert smiling.
Yeah. We've had it a few times where it's just like you come in the morning not knowing what to do, and then suddenly you're just gonna dunk like, okay, we got to send all these parts out because we got some upgrade we want to send to this track. Yeah. And sometimes it can be quite a push, and that's just F1. Like in general, that's kind of what makes F1 and exciting. So it's fun.
And that's really good. And this is where, as well, I can imagine it's kind of exciting, isn't it? You know, you're all on that mission, all pulling in the same direction, and whatever's happening, you've got to face it, be agile enough to prioritize tasks. And did you feel as though you got the support? Because I can imagine going into these situations, knowing you've got the responsibility, did you feel as though you were supported throughout the journey?
Oh, yeah, definitely. We're never on our own. It's like, if we're in the boat with everyone else. If the car's performing, we're all celebrating together. If the car's not performing, we're all working together. So it's not like you're on your own, just working by yourself. Everyone else has gone home and just left you to it. It's like if we're there, everyone else there. So it's good.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Well, I can't wait to hear more about the projects that you've been working on. We are going to delve into that in a little bit more detail. Edward, I'm going to come to you next. Similar kind of question. So if you could just tell us where you went to university and what you studied and why you studied that and everything else, please.
Yeah. So I study at Loughborough University. I'm just about to start my fifth year, well, technically fourth year of a master's degree in automotive engineering.
Brilliant.
And I chose Loughborough because of the course. It's got a good mix of ground vehicle engineering, but also enough fluid mechanics that really allowed me to lead into aerodynamics. And also Loughborough has really good links with a lot of F1 teams. So a lot of people do placements and grad roles from Loughborough and go to Formula One teams.
And I know they've promoted the event quite heavily. So thank you, placement team, for doing that, because they wanted to push you and Robert and spread the message to all students from that university that's listening. So tell us a bit more about your role then, Edward, and what you've been up to.
Yeah, so I was a student placement aerodynamicist, and that's just involved in the aerodynamic development. So there's aerodynamic teams, and you work within the team on certain projects, certain areas of the car, and you're really given a lot of freedom. Once you get up to speed with how the aerodynamics works, you can take your own area and really develop it yourself in CFD, and also follow that through to the wind tunnel, and some of your parts might even make it onto the track. So it's you learn a hell of a lot about the aerodynamic development as a whole, and it's really cool to be a part of.
So this might be a silly question, Edward, with me not coming from an engineering technical kind of background. Will you be just focusing on a certain element of the car and the dynamics of that element? Or like you say, is it the whole car that you kind of get to play with and see what bits you can improve and maybe where, you know, there needs to be fixes made?
So there's a certain number of groups, and each group has a certain number of aerodynamicists, and they focus typically on a certain area of the car. But within your role, you might have a certain, say, part on the car, but you also have to understand the whole aerodynamics of the car as a whole package.
Right.
Because each element influences other areas of the car, so you really have to have a good appreciation of how they all work together. But typically you might have a particular area that you work on, and say the person sitting next to you might be working on a very similar area, or perhaps a different sort of concept. And so you have to really have a good appreciation of the aerodynamics of the whole entire vehicle.
Brilliant. Yeah. And would you say then, how does that kind of work as a team? Do you all sit in that department as a group? Or how, you spread out, or how does that work?
Yeah, so you sit within your group. So it's
right.
I'm sure the DO might have moved, but typically it's the aerodynamic department sits in sort of one side of the DO, and then you are close to your group. So you can always ask people in your group for support, and you learn a lot from every single member of your group because they're always willing to make time to help you and help your development, because ultimately that helps the development of the car.
Yeah. Well, do you know, you answered the question I was just about to ask. I was just about to say that. So what was the support like? And it sounds as though already that there is a lot. And, you know, to say you've been, again, jumped in the deep end, you can ask those questions. You've got that team around you. Brilliant. So thank you, Edward, for that. Robert, I'm going to come to you next. Again, similar questions. If you could just introduce yourself and tell us what you've been up to.
Yeah, hi, I'm Robert. I went to Loughborough University and still go to Loughborough University. I'm on the same course as Ed, doing automotive engineering MEng. And again, I'm going into my fifth and final year. And while on placement, I did 13 months with Ishmael doing aero model design. And then I did a month of engine systems design. And then I'll be going back in June to be a graduate engine systems designer.
Oh, wow. Congratulations. Well done.
Thank you.
So Robert and Edward, so did you apply together? Did you encourage each other to apply? Did you help each other with the application, or did you not know that you were both going to get the job?
Well, I actually applied a couple of years before, and I wanted, and I didn't get it that time, so I tried again.
Right.
I mean, a lot of people in our cohort were all trying to apply for these same sort of jobs, because obviously they're quite hot property, these sort of jobs. So I'm sure we're all aware that we're all somewhat competing against each other as much as we're trying to help each other out, maybe. Obviously it's a hyper competitive industry and we can't all get a job here, so it's a kind of bit of dog eat dog until you get there, and then obviously we all become happy family when we're all working together.
Yeah, I had sort of a more conventional routes. I had just applied and luckily got the position, so I was lucky enough not to have to compete against Rob for the placements.
We're
But do you
both
know
here
what? That
now.
is still a really good, yeah, exactly. You're still all here now, but it's a good point that you made there, Rob. You know, it is that, you know, you've got to, you know, even if you're not successful with your first application, which, you know, there might be some students this year, you know, that will more than likely be the case, because how many, you know, people do want to apply. If, you know, what's the saying, first time you don't succeed, try and try again, because you're a perfect example of it. And now, Rob, you've secured your graduate role, and how exciting now going into your final year. What's it like knowing that you can just relax?
I wouldn't say I could just relax, because as I'm sure we'll touch on later, I've got, well, final year is going to be a lot, and then obviously some extracurricular stuff and what have you. But yeah, it's quite exciting, especially the time the team is like leaving the team now, seeing what's just about to start, and knowing that that's going to be a part of my future is very exciting.
So Rob, sorry, going back slightly then. So tell us a bit about your placement and what your role was on placement.
Yeah, so the main role I applied for and got was the aero designer role, similar to Ishmael. I was working in a different group to Ishmael, so I was working on the floor of the car, so designing a lot of parts for the wind tunnel development of the floor itself. It involved a lot of kind of project management, I'd say, because it's a very tight ship of delivering stuff to the wind tunnel. I don't know how much I can go into the depths of the times and timelines we were working to, but there's very tight turnarounds and a lot of kind of rapid development. Things are changing, results on track influence the decisions they're making in the design office, a lot of things like that. And the aero designers are very important in manifesting the aerodynamicist idea in a physical environment. And the wind tunnel is the number one tool to inform the decisions. And as placement students, we were designing, I'd say, around a quarter of the parts as a student placement of our entire group's output. I'd say that's probably roughly accurate, man. And that's quite a lot of responsibility, but also a massive privilege and an incredible like experience to be thrown in. But you when you're doing a lecture twice a week, you learn stuff. But when you're in the office from 8:30 till 5:30 on the advert, but realistically 8 whatever times we were working to,
because you love it so much.
Oh yeah, definitely. I know, no, I did actually really love it.
Of course, yeah.
But yeah, the aero side is crazy, and you're a key part of it, so it's a massive challenge, but also very rewarding.
Yeah, I can imagine. Absolutely. It seems as though, you know, from your experiences so far, and Kira, I will come to you, and you might be able to second this as well. You know, you almost need to be someone who is quite quick to adapt to change. I can imagine that. So like you said, Ishman, you know, your day, you could have it planned, but you don't know what's going to come through, and being able to adapt quite quickly. Would you say, Natasha, is that a skill that you look for when you are, you know, if you were looking at an application, would you want someone who's quite an agile, quite quick thinker that can adapt? Oh, Natasha, can't hear you.
Can't hear you, Natasha.
Can you hear me?
Oh,
yes, we can.
I don't know what happened. Yeah, I would say the ability to work in an ever-changing environment, like like everybody has said here. One day you could be doing something, and then it's all stop. Reverse, we're doing something else today, and I think you have to be able to go with the bad.
Yeah. Adapt is
adapt.
Go with the flow.
Yeah. Kira, I can come to you next. Please, same similar questions. If you'd just like to introduce yourself and tell us where you went to university, what you did, and a bit about your journey so far.
So I'm Kira. I went to the University of Southampton and I studied the MEng Integrated Masters Aeronautics and Astronautics course. And then I took a year out between my third and fourth year to do a placement. So I did my placement, and then I knew I had a grad offer to come back here as a graduate before I went back to uni, which did take off a lot of the pressure the final year. So yeah, that's sort of mostly what I did.
And tell us a bit about your role when you were a placement student, and again, what you did there in a bit more detail, if you could.
So I was in aero performance as well. I was quite lucky. So most of aero performance is looking at aero data from the car and then using that to make decisions about which parts to use, etc., what to run, what the car's doing. But I also got quite a varied experience when I was a placement student because my department were really good at showing me quite a few different things they were doing. So I got to go see some stuff in R&D as well, and see a few other bits and sort of see how what we did fitted in with the rest of performance and the rest of aero and everything a bit more. So sort of like understanding what we were doing and how that was impacting everything. So that was quite interesting.
Definitely. And Kira, for you, you know, it's great that you got the graduate offer. But I can imagine, was it quite quickly within the placement you thought you could imagine yourself, you know, having a career here? How quickly did you kind of make that decision, or was this a career you always wanted to go into?
So it wasn't necessarily something I always knew I wanted to go into. So when I sort of applied for placements, I wasn't actually that set on what I wanted to do. I did an aero related degree, so I was really interested in aero, but I wasn't really sure if I wanted to do aero design or aerodynamicist or sort of more performance related things. So I think you can apply for like 3 placements maybe or positions. So I applied for a few at Aston and etc. And then I got off the air performance role, but quite quickly I sort of realized it's actually what I quite like doing. So I probably knew by like Christmas time of my placement year that I was really happy and that I really liked it here and wanted to come back. So then that's become something to sort of work towards for the rest of the year of trying to learn as much as possible to be like a good candidate for coming back as a graduate.
Yeah, and that was going to be my next question. So tell me a bit about the transition, because we're lucky to have you in the sense of, you know, doing the placement, doing your final year, now coming back. What's that journey been a bit like, and how has Aston Martin kind of looked after you throughout that?
So I was quite lucky. So last year while I was back at uni, I did a few sort of keeping in touch days. So I came into the office a few times to sort of keep up with what was going on, because it's quite hard to walk away for a year and come back. But it's still been quite a big transition, I think, going from a student where I think your main goal really is to learn to then become a graduate where it sort of becomes, you're still meant to be learning, but I think well, at least I feel like there's slightly more responsibility now, but still learning and still enjoying it, but it is different.
And Kira, how have you managed that responsibility? Because again, sometimes people can thrive off that, or all of a sudden they can panic a little bit and think, I need a little bit of support here. You know, who can I turn to? So how have you personally managed that, if you don't mind me asking?
I found it okay. I'm quite lucky. I have a very nice department. Like managers in my department are very supportive. The more senior engineers, like everyone's willing to answer questions and help you. So I think that's helped a lot. Just sort of knowing that no one's going to think you're silly if you ask what might be a silly question, because it's probably not a silly question for you, even if like more senior engineers just know it. Like everyone was sort of a grad once, so they remember what that's like.
And that's the thing, that ultimately people aren't going to give you responsibility if they don't think you can handle it either, are they? So sometimes your own self-doubt, isn't it? Thinking, oh, can I do it? Or is this too much? But obviously you've got a fantastic team around you that think you can, and you definitely can. So tell us a bit about something I always like to ask is going into a final year, and Rob, you might want to add to this as well. You know, I always say to students, the benefit of doing a placement, yes, it's great experience, but personally as well, going back into your final year, you know, a lot of students talk about, you know, they performed a lot better, they got, you know, potentially a better grade and stuff like that. So what kind of skills did you feel like you'd gained going back into your final year?
I think the main skill was sort of not time management as such, but really just getting things done. So I think not to procrastinate. I think you become a lot better at that after doing a placement. At some point, I did find uni a bit more boring in final year, I'd say, which is a bit, but I think it's because you've done so much more interesting stuff that you go back, but it gives you a drive to get it done, because especially if you have a grad offer, if you know you want to go back, you're like, okay, I can get this done, I can get it done to a good level. I think that it helps you sort of perform better because you've sort of not procrastinating, you're getting things done, you want things to be done well. So it gives you some more drive.
Yeah, I was just about to say drive, motivation, you know, and also you know how to handle work, probably load a lot better as well, don't you? Rob, do you feel the same? Have you kind of feeling that already?
Yeah, I mean, I can't say how I feel because our term hasn't started yet, but I can definitely imagine from the step from being a third year student, which was very kind of involved and very stressful, and then going into the work environment where you're turning up at your hours and you're staying to get your job done, and you've got a very kind of, you've got your desk, you do your work, and then you go home when your work is done. It's a much more kind of structured workflow than what you might get tempted into as a student, where you're like, oh, I'll just do this all-nighter and get it all done at the end. Whereas in the workplace, you can't get away with doing an all-nighter. Well, sometimes Ishkan and I had to do some all-nighters, but Yeah, I think you end up as a much more structured individual, because you've got a year of experience of working in a structured organization, and you can pull a lot of learnings from that in your self-management and project management of your university projects and what have you.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
very valuable.
Yeah, no, it'd be
A bit more
interesting.
about all these all-nighters.
I know, I was just about to say that's gone then, Ishmael. So what are these all-nighters you've
What have
been
you been up to?
the entails?
Don't know how much I can say.
No, don't
But-
worry.
Okay.
Tell us a bit about the projects then that you've been involved in a little bit more detail if you can.
Yeah, like I touched on before, like you just get a few little R&D projects. So sometimes there's a process that's in the wind tunnel that's taking too long. We'd figure out ways that, okay, how can we make it quicker? How can we make it more effective? How can it give us better results in the wind tunnel? Because wind tunnel, it's got a lot of inaccuracies, and our job is to try and minimize those so it's as accurate as possible. So that's giving us the right readings and right correlations. So often we just get sent on little side projects where they have this part of the car which is given incorrect readings, or there might be some discrepancies. We'd design and test and figure out ways that we can introduce improvements.
Yeah.
Also, I've been volunteering for like other departments. So I worked a bit with composites when they were low manpower. I've done a bit of surfacing. So you also get those kind of opportunities where if another department needs some help, you can volunteer yourself and do something that's not to do with your role, but you're interested in as well.
Ah, that's interesting. I was about to ask that, is can you be a bit diverse? If personally you've got a bit of an interest in something else, can you go and get involved in that? And you've found that, have you?
Yeah, if time permits, because obviously our main role takes priority. If we're busy within our own role and there's an opportunity for someone else, obviously we're going to choose our own role first. But sometimes you do get quiet periods when someone else is actually struggling instead. So you can go help them. It depends on what kind of role you take, and maybe Dash can touch on it. But I did have the opportunity, so it's not possible.
That's really good. That's really interesting. Edward, I'm just going to come to you as well about projects. Is there a particular project or anything that you want to talk about in a bit more detail if you can?
Yeah, so I can't really give many specifics, but I can sort of paint a good picture. So as our development group would have sort of a concept that we're trying to achieve. So it'll be an area of the car and we want to do it a little bit differently because we think that's the right direction we want to take it in. And so as a member of that team, I'll probably have a specific area of that area of the car that I'll be doing the CAD for, submitting to CFD and analyzing. And then over the course of a few weeks or months, that'll gradually get better, become more developed. And then once it reaches a certain maturity, we can send it to the wind tunnel. Okay. And then once it's at the wind tunnel, it's our job to interpret the results, and really that's the key step, is learning from the wind tunnel and then using that to further develop. And then if it is good enough using our wind tunnel metrics, then we can eventually send it to the car. So there's been so many projects where we have been able to do that. Yeah.
Edward, I'm going to ask you a curveball question. I did warn you I might ask you a curveball question, but was there any kind of like light bulb moments for you? Not necessarily going into detail about the certain project, but did you ever get an experience or a project and it was like, oh my God, yeah, this is what we need to do? Or I'm just can imagine working in that environment, again, when you're working to these targets, it's, quite high pressure in terms of getting stuff turned around in time. And then you fix something, you're like, yes, I can imagine it was really satisfying.
If only it was that easy in the
is it naive thought?
Yeah, I mean, these cars are just so heavily developed. It's so hard to make progress on the cars. Obviously, you have to. It's a development race, but there's very rarely anything where you just see it and you're like, yes, we need more of that.
Okay.
But there are obviously things that we send to the wind tunnel that absolutely work, and we think, yes, we want to explore that more.
Yeah. That must be nice as well. Then you get the time to explore that. But yeah, that is quite an interesting thought, actually. Maybe that was a bit of a naive question from me. But yeah, it's almost the slow increment that's then, you keep building on it, don't you? Which then is going to make the car go faster. Kira, we're going to come to you as well about a project. Is there a particular project or anything that you've been involved in so far that you can talk about?
Not really a project as such, but one of my things I did enjoy while on my placement was doing event support. So on Fridays, Aero Performance do event support, so like looking at the data live off the cars. And I think that was a really interesting thing to see as a placement student and actually be able to get involved with, and something that's like sort of quite live and quite everything has to be done that day. And so I think that was probably one of like the most interesting sort of projects I did.
Yeah. So in terms of event support, that's obviously like, is that for the full race weekend, or is that
So I only really did Fridays when I was on placement, but there is people in the factory the whole weekend in various departments doing stuff. And I don't know if it's still an opportunity, but it definitely was when I was a placement student, that you could sign up to do strategy support as well. So you can, from any placement student, could sign up to sort of help out in mission control and like do stuff that's going on. So like that was on a rota. So there was opportunities for everyone to get involved with that, which is interesting because it's like more sort of like what you see on TV side of F1 as well.
Yeah, but that was really cool. So is that still the case, Natasha, that the placement students can do that? They can get involved in that.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
they can volunteer and do that.
And can they volunteer and do it as many times as they wish?
I think so. Can you, Kira? Can you just say, I want to do it this
normally
weekend?
it's sort of organised and there's a rota. So I think you sign up at the beginning of the year and then
Yeah.
it gets assigned and they sort of say, oh, can you do this week? Can you do that week? But I think you can do it multiple times a year if it's like there's not too many people signed up, which I don't think there usually is that many, because you have to give up your whole weekend for volunteering for free and you don't get any days back or anything. It's just a interesting thing to do.
Yeah, cool. Well, that's really nice. And Robert, I want to come to you because we actually have a question that's come in, and I think that you'll be able to answer this one. So we've had quite a few technical questions, but we've got one in from Sahil. He studies at the University of Hull and wanted to know a bit about the CAD software that you use and why you use it, and then also NVH, which stands for noise, vibration and harshness, and if this is a concern or worry that you have when you're working with CAD.
Yeah, so I mean, I can attack that second question with kind of from two angles, from my exposure to the wind tunnel side and also a bit of full size car stuff. The wind tunnel model, it's a moving model. It's not just a static like you might have seen at uni where you've just got a block in a wind tunnel and you're measuring forces off it. It's a dynamic moving piece of equipment, and although you're trying to model a perfectly smooth racetrack or whatever Corson's racetrack, it's never perfect. So we've had a lot of like wind tunnel parts where we needed to kind of do different things to manage long-term part wear. So although the forces going through it aren't going to break it instantly, if a wind tunnel part is being maintained on the model for a few sessions, perhaps some reliability things need to be addressed with the noise, vibration, harshness. But then from a full size perspective, I was doing some hardline tubing for AMR 25, and there's a lot of consideration for, well, this car is actually going around a track, and if this pipe bursts or cracks, then that's game over. That's quite an interesting challenge in engine systems. Although you're not making the car faster, you could be the difference between the car stopping in track in a points paying position. So it's a kind of different challenge, but a very important one nonetheless. And then the question about CAD software, we use CATIA, which I think is probably it would likely be quite new to anyone in this call, because it's an industry standard software that's very expensive, and I imagine most unis won't use it. And I thought that was quite an intimidating thing going into it, because our uni has NX, which is, again, we're quite lucky to have that as a CAD software. But I thought this was going to be I don't know what I'm going to do, because, well, it's a new thing that I haven't used before. But the way I look at it now is this was an incredible opportunity to now say, oh, I can use CATIA and I can use NX. And from a uni perspective of, oh, you've got like a CAD lecture 2 hours a week, and then that's the kind of that slow learning process of a new software. Whereas in the CAD side at work, you're doing it as your 9-to-5 job. Like, you will pick it up quickly, and there's a bunch of resources that the different groups have put together for their specific use cases of CAD and all the other softwares that the company uses, because there's a lot of custom software that you'll get to use, and it's all about getting you up to speed, because you're more valuable when you know what you're doing. And of course, you're a student, so you're not expected to be a CAD whiz on their specific system on day one. So yeah, it's a learning process.
I like that line, you're not expected to know. And I think that's where, I think, again, when we look at our questions, don't we, Carla, from the students that have been submitted, and sometimes I just want to speak to them all individually and say, it's all right,
It's all right not to
don't
know.
put all the pressure on yourself just at this early stage. You're not supposed to know everything just yet. Because I was going to ask you, Rob, is there anything that a student you think could do to prepare? But by the sounds of it, not really, as long as they've kind of got the basic
Yeah, I mean, from a CAD perspective, obviously there's going to be an extrude, there's going to be a sketch tool, there's going to be a sweep tool, whatever, in every
Yeah.
CAD software. So, I mean, being aware of what's possible in CAD, and then I'd say it's probably like learning a language, maybe to a lesser degree, or learning a coding language. You can achieve the same things in different softwares, different languages, different coding softwares. So it's all about just knowing what's possible. And if you are proficient in another CAD software, it's going to be a lot easier to then transition to becoming a proficient user in another one. But I think also one thing that's quite important is, well, especially when you're getting interviewed, is your approach to things. Because yeah, again, they're not expecting you to be the perfect designer on day one, but if you can if you can show that you're going to rise to the challenge and learn things and then become a useful team member, that's ultimately what they're looking for.
Yeah. And I think, Natasha, I'm bringing you in on this because I can imagine that's what you want to see, just that willingness. That's someone who just wants to know more and is hungry for it. Oh, Natasha.
Here you go, Natasha.
Technology, we said, didn't we, before our prep session?
We probably jinxed ourselves.
It's going to come and get us. We'll come back to you, Natasha. We'll talk about your hints and tips a lot later on. But next, I want to talk about the campus. As Natasha mentioned right at the beginning, the campus sounds absolutely amazing. So, Kira, I'm going to kind of come to you on this, and Edward as well. But again, Ishmael and Robert, if you want to add to it, please do. But tell us a bit what the campus is like, and any hints for students that are kind of joining and settling in, and how can they prepare to join the team? Kira, I'm going to come to you on that one.
So yeah, the campus is lovely. So when I first joined about 2 years ago now, it was the tiny old factory. And we've now moved into pretty much all 3 buildings. I think they're still finishing off some bits in the 3rd building. But it's really nice. Like, it's really modern, really up to date. It's a nice place to work. And it's also a very, very, like, even the outside green, it's like you're kind of in the countryside, which can be a bit difficult logistically if you don't drive, but sort of like being able to go out for a walk at lunchtime into fields and stuff is actually really nice. And it's just a nice place to work and a nice place to come every day.
So we mentioned, obviously Natasha mentioned as well about, like the gym, there's a restaurant, the food and stuff, but the culture, would you say the cultures are kind of changed a bit now? You've got this, campus. I can imagine that the team is kind of changed the dynamic a bit. I feel like everyone's getting involved, everyone's pulling together. Would you say it's changed the culture slightly in a obviously more positive way?
I think so. I think it's nice that most of the design people are now all in one DO, whereas before we were sort of in another room, not that close to design because of space and stuff, or in the old factory. But really having more people close together, and it's easier to get between sort of departments. And I think probably the aero people can speak on how it'll be much better with the wind tunnel closer and stuff. So sort of having everything close together is quite helpful, and it does give it more of like a team feel, and it's nice to actually be able to see everybody sort of together in one place working together.
So it's like, hopefully, can we hear you now, Natasha? Are you back?
You hear me?
Yeah, we can hear, because I won't tell you, you don't have to share your embarrassing story, but a bit like when you're out about, you get to see lots of people when you're on campus, don't you, Natasha?
I do. I won't share that with everybody, but yeah, you can be in the gym and see people that you don't really want to see when you're working out. Let's just say that. But yeah, I would say it has massively changed the culture. Yeah. I feel like everybody's relaxed a little bit more into this new building now. It took us a while to get used to it. But now we walk around with quite a spring in our step. We feel so happy and lucky to have this, the most amazing technology. All of these amazing facts. We do consider ourselves extremely lucky.
Yeah, definitely. And I suppose, Edward, it kind of goes back to your parents. It's those little increments, isn't it? And then, if you all feel like you're in an environment which you're all thriving, enjoying, wanting to be there, again, that then helps in your day-to-day stuff and what you're doing. Have you got anything to add to that, Edward, in terms of your experience of the campus?
Yeah, so I would say from an aerodynamicist perspective, having the new wind tunnel is going to be absolutely amazing. Because obviously we still work in the Mercedes wind tunnel, and logistically that is quite difficult. So having this brand new shiny wind tunnel right on campus is just going to be amazing. You can just go downstairs to where all the model parts are manufactured, or aerodynamicists can come from the DO to the wind tunnel when they're being tested. That's going to be huge for the team as soon as it's up and running and fully developed. And it's going to be a great privilege to work in it, and I'm quite jealous that student placements are going to be able to do it.
Yeah, I can imagine. Oh, what an opportunity. And next, I want to talk a bit about kind of the social elements as well. So Ishman, I'm going to come to you on that one. And if you could tell us a bit of the things that you've been involved in whilst you were on your placement.
Yeah, in terms of like social stuff, we do have like a few employee groups. So the one that I was involved in is the multicultural ethnic group from diverse backgrounds. We would just meet up I think it was 1 week every month. So during one lunchtime we'd meet up, we just pretty much just catch up. It wasn't that formal. It was quite informal, just like a bunch of friends just meeting up. We talk about what we've been up to, and then we'd get on to what we want to do. So if someone's having some issues, so we'd often get like new employees that come, because obviously it's a F1 where everyone from the whole world wants to come work for us. So some people might have trouble settling in. It's just like a little group everyone can just talk to and feel free, express any concerns, stuff like that. But obviously there's other groups, so we have like a neurodivergent group. There's maybe some others that I might be missing, but if there's something that you want, there's nothing that's saying that you can't start it as well. So there's that kind of stuff. And we also have like in aerodynamics, I know that we had a few like team building events. So I don't know if I stole what Rob's gonna say, but like we had one of the fun ones was they booked out like a sim center, like sim racing. So we did like a little department event. That was pretty fun. Yeah, it's now that we're becoming like a bigger team, I can say we do have more of these opportunities, which is actually quite fun, and it just gives us a chance to get everyone to know each other better, just blow off some steam. It's a long season, so we need some playtime as well.
Yeah, some downtime, some chill time. And Robert, can you add to that in any way? Is there anything that you got involved in?
Yeah, well, I mean, to carry on the kind of social aspects of it, all these groups are so reliant on each other that everyone in the group becomes so close. And obviously, as it is with F1, there's a lot of people moving on, people coming in at different times, and you'll probably inevitably have people in your group leaving to go on to different things, or people coming in, and it's quite nice. You meet a lot of people from, again, very varied backgrounds. But one of the things I always enjoyed seeing people leave is that we went to the Hilton for a couple of drinks at lunchtime when someone left, and then come back just in time. But then also, like, there's so many things, like everyone's obviously loves cars and racing, so there's always people doing go-kart weekends and just all sorts of stuff like that. And also from a more formal side, there's a bunch of like outreach activities that are going on at the team at the moment. Like I was able to do some like volunteering for the food bank. That was really good. And like when they make it so accessible that you can just come around, give an hour of your lunchtime to help people in the local community, I think that was like quite a rewarding exercise, and very lucky to be able to do it so easily. And then also things like these kind of student outreach things. We've done loads of things at the factory with students coming in. I've had multiple work experience, like people from local schools sat next to me at my desk showing them what we do. And then also the more formal things like the things we've done in the street with all of the students coming in. It's a really kind of, they're very focused on extracting talent and getting lots of fresh faces in. Like it's a very, I'd say, young workforce. And it's really good.
It's nice to be able to give back at this early stage of your career as well, and be inspiring the next generation coming through, telling those students that might never have considered it that they can. Which kind of leads me nicely on to Carla, because you've got lots of questions on how, what, and why, and when.
I have lots of questions, so thanks, guys. It's been an amazing insight
Really
into Aston Martin Formula One. So how do you apply? So firstly, Natasha, I've got a couple of quick fire questions, if that's okay. So I think Kira's mentioned this, but I just want to kind of get your take on it as well. So can students apply for more than one opportunity?
Yes, I don't think there's a limit. I'm not sure if we've put a limit on this year. So yes, the answer is yes, but I will caveat that to say make sure you're applying for roles that you have experience in, because you're going to have to take a test in those subjects.
Fantastic, thank you very much. And the next one would be to talk about location. So are the roles hybrid or in a specific location?
No, they're not hybrid. The factory is so beautiful. We want everybody there. You know, we all work at the factory most of the time. I mean, you can see I'm at home today, so occasionally I can work from home, and you know, dependent on what area you're in, potentially. But we want everybody to be there, buzzing, you know, off each other, learning from each other. So 8:30, 5:30, or obviously the guys are there a lot later, aren't they, than that?
Doing their all-nighters, which we're not allowed to, we're not allowed to talk about. Okay, so I'm just on that point. Thanks, Natasha. I want to come back to you, Edward, because I know you relocated for your placement at Aston Martin. So can you tell me a little bit more about the support that you were given?
Yeah. So I was quite lucky that I only had to move a couple hours away from my university, but it was still to a completely new area that I hadn't been to. So what was really helpful was the team got us all of the upcoming placement students, gave our contacts to each other. And so we were able to form a group chat, and I actually eventually ended up having a house with the other 3 placement student aerodynamicists. So that was really good, and we shared lifts into work, and we had the opportunity to get to know each other before we all came on placement as well, and that was really good. And for the upcoming years, I know we gave some advice to the upcoming placement students just on where they should live, what are good areas to look at, and just general housing advice.
Yeah, it's really good that you give that from a student point of view as well. I know, Natasha, obviously you would help and your team would help, but you know, from the person who's actually done it, who has actually relocated as well, I think that experience is invaluable. So thanks very much for that. So Natasha, back to you, talking about the initial stages of the application process. I've got questions from 2 people. So James at University College London. So James asks if students outside of the UK and the EU can apply, and if you offer work visas.
Yes, absolutely. And yes, we arrange all visas.
Okay, that was a quick answer, thank you. And second question is similar question actually from her at Oxford Brookes and Brian at De Montfort. So can people who've already graduated apply for your placements?
You need to be going back to university to finish your studies. So no, you need to be part way through your course.
Perfect, thanks, Natasha.
Because it's just an undergraduate placement. But you can apply for a graduate programme when they come out in October.
Yeah, okay. So 2 messages there then. So placement students can go and apply for the opportunities which are currently live on Gradcracker now. So make sure you get your applications in, and give Aston Martin a quick follow to be alerted when the graduate opportunities go live next month. Yeah, which will soon be here. Thank you for that. So let's now talk about the application process, Natasha. So students go onto your hub on Gradcracker, they've clicked through, and tell me about the next steps.
So you'll click through on the job that you want to apply for. Now, some of those positions will have the same test applied to them. You don't need to worry about that. You just need to click on the jobs that you want to apply for, and it will take you through to a microsite, which will then take you through to the test site.
Yes.
So as I said, and I'll keep reiterating this, make sure that you do apply for the jobs that you have experience in. And I'm sure these amazing people here will talk a little bit about the tests. They're not simple, they're quite detailed. If you're applying for an aero job, you need to really understand your aero principles, because you'll be questioned on that. So you can take that test at any point throughout your application whilst it's open. And then if you have scored in the top percentile, you will be contacted and you will come in for either an assessment centre or a standard interview. It will be one of those ways. If you live in another country, then we can do those over Teams. We won't expect you to come all the way over here to do the interviews. So it closes on the 9th of October. You'll be alerted probably a week or so after that, once we've looked at all the tests, and then you'll be called in anytime between October and December.
Oh, I've lost you, Natasha. So you'll be called in, I missed you that bit there. So you'll be called in anytime between October and December.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Perfect. Okay. But just to kind of go through the tests, I know, Natasha, when we've spoken before, you've mentioned that the tests, what did you say at our prep session? Yeah, they're really quite difficult. So what we want to do now...
They're not going to be easy. We're going to, we want to make sure that that you are assessed on your ability in that subject. So they are going to be quite specific to the subject to the job that you've applied for. So you've got to know your stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And all the research that you need to do, don't forget, students who are watching, is on the Aston Martin Hub on Gradcracker. You know, there's plenty of information on there. Rewatch this webinar. Hopefully Kira is going to give you some hints and tips about these tests next. But all of the information is in the job description, so that it really is your place to do your research.
I was going to say, read the job description, read the advert from top to bottom, because there's lots of little highlighted bits. You know, unfortunately, we have thousands of applications. I'm not able to give individual updates on everybody's applications. I wish I could, but I'd be doing that probably all day, every day. So just really read the application, because it will tell you about the process and the timelines on there too.
Perfect. Thanks, Natasha. So Kira, a lady who's actually done these tests, so how difficult were they? And how did you prepare, if you can go into detail about that?
So I remember doing them. It was quite a while ago now, actually.
Yes.
And they're not super simple. And I think the other thing is to remember that they're often not things you've necessarily been taught on your degree course. So some people do apply in their second year for these, and especially if you've just gone into second year, I think you'd find that a lot of it is something you probably haven't been told. Especially if you're applying for like area placements, it's not often that widely taught. So sort of reading around the subject a little bit, and sort of prepping that way. So look at the role you want to apply for, and like sort of look at what that role, and as Natasha said, read the advert and read what that role actually entails. And don't think you know what it means, because a lot of companies call the same role different things, just by their own sort of way of doing it. So make sure you read what it says. And then I prepared by sort of reading around it, but also sitting with some of my friends on my course. So a lot of us were like doing tests at the same time. So before we did any of the tests, because they are proctored and you have to do them alone, make sure you don't like take your phone, like do them with your phone out, because you will get caught by the like system. But we sort of would sit together and we'd go through different things and try and like make sure that we all were understanding what we were trying to learn. And I think it can help doing it with other friends, because they might help you like see things that you didn't really know, and if you don't understand something, they might be able to explain it to you and you can explain something to them, and making sure that you're really clear, I think, because it's not necessarily taught in your degree course. But definitely, read around the subject and make sure you find somewhere quiet and peaceful to do the test, and give yourself, I don't know if they're timed, but make sure you give yourself adequate time so you can take as much time as it allows, rather than feeling rushed and things like that.
That's such a good idea. I absolutely love that. Getting together as a bit of a group to discuss those points, and then learn from one another, and then going off and doing it. I think that's a really lovely idea. And Natasha, can we go into a bit more detail there, because I remember you said in our prep session as well about if anyone does look away or look at the phones. Can we talk about that? Because that's a really good point.
So the test is video proctored, which means you have to look like this. If you start going like this or down like this, the system will think that you're looking at a phone or a book or speaking to someone in the room, and it could end the test. So really just focus on your screen. Just try and keep as still as you can.
Thanks, everybody. That was going to be my next question, Jess. Took the words right out of my mouth. That's okay, my loves. That's what we're here for. So I've got a question now, Kane, coming back to you, Natasha. So Najma at the University of Northampton and William from Oxford Brookes. Thank you, William. You've been very proactive with asking us questions. So they would like to know how they make their application stand out.
So this is probably the question that I
think I've lost Natasha.
Gets asked the most.
Gets asked the most. I might come to a student while Natasha's frozen. So Edward, I'm going to pick on you now, so sorry about this. How do you think you made your application stand out to Natasha and Natasha's team?
What's a tough question? I would say highlight experience you have that really shows how to do the role, or just highlight because everyone has done their degree. Highlight the fact that you've used your degree and applied it somewhere. And that you really have genuine enthusiasm, and that you've gone outside your degree to really show it and just advertise yourself.
Did you pick out certain modules that you'd done at university then to really make you stand out from others?
I think at that point, so we couldn't choose any modules by that point, I think. But I think it not only focused on things on the course, but even something that isn't even related to engineering, that could be interesting to the recruiters.
Yeah.
As long as you can demonstrate how those skills might apply to F1 and how it would be of use to the team. Any experience is good.
It's good experience. Thanks, Edward. Natasha, we lost you. Did you have anything else that
I'm
you want to add? You're back, yes, can hear you.
I was going to say exactly what Ed said, but also don't worry if you've not been a part of Formula Student. Don't worry if you are not part of a track day or, an aero group or a coding group. Don't worry. Just if you've got all that stuff, add it to your CV. If you don't, just put about what you're doing at university, or if you've been writing a podcast at the weekend, put that on there. Just think about what could add to like making the whole story of your journey. That's all I'd say.
I'm glad that you've mentioned that, because we've had a lot of questions from students who, they might not be specifically involved in Formula Student or a motorsport subject at university, and they were asking if they can still apply, which obviously you've just said absolutely with the applications. And I think as well, it's just to show you the transferable skills that students have got from university and those extracurricular activities like voluntary work and things like that. That's what you want to see.
Yeah, exactly that. Don't panic if you're not part of Formula Student. Not everybody is.
Yeah, perfect. Now, on the flip side of that, so bear in mind, Natasha says, don't worry about it if you're not part of Formula Student, but we have had a lot of questions from students who are involved in Formula Student, just about what you mentioned as part of your applications and how you highlighted the fact that you were in Formula Student. So, Kira, I'm going to come back to you on this. So how did you kind of mention that you were involved in Formula Student and how did you make that come across in your application?
So I think when I did mine, there was a question about it, or it was linked somewhere and it was like mention any relevant experience. But I think something to remember with Formula Student is just if you just turn up and don't do anything, that's not doing it. And I think you really need to be able to make sure that you're talking about the skills that you've got from it and how they're useful. I don't think writing, I was in this department of Formula Student necessarily helps when they look at your CV or your application. I don't think that's as helpful as explaining what you've done and what skills that's given you and how those skills will then help you do whatever role you're applying to and how that's relevant. So just I think focusing on the skills and doing it, and it is useful, but making sure that you're taking the right useful bits and not just writing one sentence about it, because that doesn't help anyone.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks very much for that, Kira. So just to reiterate, any applications are welcome, but just make sure you highlight those key skills that you've got, whether it is Formula Student, but use examples, or if you're not involved, anything else that you've been up to, that would be beneficial to Natasha and obviously Aston Martin. So as moving on now, as a special request for Natasha, because she loves this round, I want to talk about, we've actually dropped these from the webinars this year when you said, oh, Carla, can we do that? I was like, oh, I'll put it back in. So favourite thing about Aston Martin Formula One. Ishmael, I'm going to come to you. What's your favourite thing so far?
I'm going to cheat and say two. One favourite thing is on Mondays we play football, which is obviously you don't have to be the best at football. We're all like various skill levels. We usually play after work on Mondays, and then sometimes we get matches organised with other teams. So we played against Alpine. We have now our annual game against Mercedes. We have other games against like Merc HPP, another game against Williams, stuff like that. So that's pretty fun to get involved in.
Yeah.
Another one is just like being a Muslim at the company, you get to know some other Muslims at the company. So we all have our prayer room that we pray, and we also go on our Friday prayers together. So that was a good thing that I wasn't alone in that we all just jumped in the car and then all five of us just headed off for how many people we get by the end of this year. But that was also pretty good that there were some people that could relate to somehow.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Really good. Thanks, Ishmael. Kira, what's your favourite thing?
I think like my department and like how like supportive my department are. I think it's something really nice in a workplace that I wanted to come back after being a placement student, because I felt really comfortable in the department instantly, and like doing stuff outside of work and like meeting up to go out or go to someone's house to watch the race and stuff. I think that's probably one of my favorite things.
Perfect. Thanks, Kira. Rob?
I think the brand is quite a special thing to be a part of.
Mhm.
Obviously, like I've enjoyed the social aspects, but it's so special. Like you come into work, oh, and there's a Valkyrie on display for some media event. And
Yeah.
when the new Vanquish came out, it was outside the front, and as a car guy, I thought that was pretty cool. And then all of the kind of little things that kind of happen in F1 team, like we were able to get like the Lego, and like
Brilliant.
everyone loves their model cars at work. And so yeah, getting on the list to get your mini champs model each year, and we had that as a Christmas present. I don't know if that will continue, but yeah, I think it's a group of really incredible people who all share this incredible passion, and yeah, felt really at home there.
You get Christmas presents, that's so sweet. Ed, last but not least.
I would say how much you are trusted as a member of the team, and
Yeah.
how much you are trusted to contribute to the team. I was in meetings where I was presenting things, and this had the technical director Dan Pallows in, and I'm just, a placement student, except that I'm not just a placement student. I'm just as trusted as every member of the aero department. And that'll be even more daunting when Adrian Newey's there. But you wouldn't get put in that position if you weren't trained up, and you will be, and you learn so much, and you'll become so confident with that.
Yeah, and trust as well, they want you to be there, don't you? They want you to be involved in these meetings with all of these different types of people. Natasha, nobody said restaurant. Do you want to say restaurant? What's your favourite thing?
Restaurant and gym, I would say. For me, it's on one of our values is nurturing, and what everybody's saying is that everybody feels like they belong, that they are valued, that they, that they have a voice. That to me is why I work there.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you all very much for joining us today. So a couple of notes to mention. The placements are currently open and live on Gradcracker now. So go and get your the applications in. Closing date the 9th of October this year. So as Natasha said, don't rush, but there is a couple of weeks left to get your applications in. If you are a grad, go and follow them on Gradcracker as well. And then when they open their roles on their hub, you will be the first to be alerted, and then you can get your applications in for your graduate positions. As always, the highlights will be live on the Aston Martin Formula One hub in the next couple of days. So don't forget to go back, rewatch the webinar and look at the highlights as well. And mention as part of your application process to Natasha and Natasha's team that you've sat and watched and enjoyed this webinar. And don't forget on Thursday, the 19th of September, 2 o'clock, Jess and Sophie will be joined by Stantec Engineering Consultancy. I'm going to be putting my feet up and watching with you guys, so we'll look forward to seeing you all then. Thanks very much, everybody. See you all soon.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.